So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple common mistakes that students make or people that do Photoshop for the first time in general make. So here are some solutions to those problems as well. So here I have my background image. Now the first thing that usually happens is people get into a really long edit and they want to rotate their photo. But because of all their layers, it doesn't rotate the way they want it to, and sometimes they'll see a double image. So just remind everyone right off the bat that if you want to do image rotation, do it as soon as you open your photo. It's going to make your life so much easier, and you just go to image rotation, and you can rotate your image this way. So that's the first thing. The next thing is we've learned how to do something called clipping to layer. And if a student has done this in a previous edit, it will continue to do it even if they've closed down Photoshop. So clipping to layer, there's a little drop down thing here. So I clicked on this box right here, and it's not actually showing up on my screen, but on the right hand side here, about this far down, is something that says clip to layer. So if I'm making adjustments and we're seeing this little drop down arrow, that means it's clipping to layer, which is fine if they're trying to do two different photos together, but if they're just editing one photo, you see this arrow, you might want to tell them to unclip their layer unless that's really what they want. So how you unclip layer, it's right here. And I know that this looks very similar, but it actually has to be up in the adjustments. Not making a retouch layer is also a problem, so you want to always make sure that students are renaming this retouch and that they have a retouch layer. Make sure that they aren't sharpening and softening on the same layer. So if someone is sharpening and softening, they should make a sharpening layer here. And then once they're done with that, you have to make sure that they don't soften on the same layer. So one thing that they need to do is make a copy of the retouch again and soften right under the sharpening layer. So a common mistake that you'll see is that, and you'll know that they've made this mistake, is if they don't have 4 layers when they're sharpening and softening. Also, if this box right here becomes gray with an overlay that they do during that edit, that means that they try to soften and sharpen on the retouch layer, which should not be done. Another common mistake you might see is someone wants to turn their photo black and white, and so they hit black and white and they're like, black and white isn't working. No, it's not that black and white isn't working, it's that they've sandwiched that edit in between these copies. So watch what happens when I take these copies off. The photo is actually black and white. So if you want your photo to be black and white, you have to go to your top photo or your top layer of your photo, then put the adjustment on. Otherwise, if it's sandwiched in between something, you're not going to see it. Sometimes when we are masking, students won't use a mask, so they're trying to do something like here, they're trying to maybe take out something or put something in, but the problem that they're running into is that they have their black brush, which is you're supposed to have for masking, but then they're like, what's happening? You know, I'm using my masking, I want to mask this out. So what's happening here is Photoshop sees the paintbrush as paint, like MS Paint, once you put it directly on the photo. So you need to put your mask on, and then you can mask in and out. Another common mistake is students will try to choose the specific white and black for masking. You can't do that. It's not going to work correctly. Even though this looks white still, it won't mask correctly. So they always have to reset their masking colors by clicking these tiny little boxes, and it'll reset it to the correct thing. Also, you don't want to switch by clicking on the boxes themselves. You always want to use the arrows, and that helps as well. Another common mistake is not deselecting. So say someone is doing a very specific edit say, let's see, I'll just do a lasso tool, and let's say that we were doing a specific edit around her eye. So in some cases, students want to move on to something else and they realize that they're not able to. And the reason is because they still have something selected in their photo that they were working on previously. So if they hit Command D, it'll deselect it. Now the real issue with this is sometimes the selection is so tiny that you can't hardly even see it. You might not notice it. So always Command D will deselect and they'll be able to do other things. This happens with cropping. Once somebody crops, they're not really sure what to do. I say anytime you're on something and it's not allowing you to move in the way you want, to click on the move tool, the top move tool, and then all that stuff will go away and you should be able to use everything correctly. Okay, let's see if there's any other. Oh, another common thing that happens is when students turn their images in, they have to go to File, Save As. And here, if for some reason you don't see all these selections, so sometimes it comes up like this, and they're like, oh, I can't change it to a JPEG, or I can't change it to what I need to change it to. They should never, ever, ever type in the file name right here. Big mistake. They always need to change the format right here. So if they're changing it into a JPEG, they have to change it there. If you're not seeing JPEG, just hit this and it'll go into the correct spot. We always want to make sure that nor alt is where we're saving our photos. So make sure that nobody puts anything on the desktop, that it always goes through nor alt.